Good afternoon. Welcome back to another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. You are tuned into documentary filmmaking with 455 Films and To the Journey, Star Trek Voyager panelist discussion today. So for all of you documentary fans, you're in for a treat. Star Trek fans are in for a treat. And if you are a fan of Star Trek documentaries, well, guess what? This is the right place to be right now. Pete Isgreg from SanDisk Professional. We want to send a huge thank you to them for hosting today's event. I'm going to turn it over to him to be the MC for this 2-hour event and invite you, if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to get them in. But Pete, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. We are really excited to be here, and I am so thrilled to bring these guys here to talk about the Star Trek Voyager documentary that they have been working on for, Joe, how many years has it been now? At least 2 or 3, probably.
Well, we technically started in 2020, right before lockdown. We did a Star Trek cruise, or we were invited onto a Star Trek cruise. Dave Sapone, who just joined us down there, our executive producer. In 2020, we had an idea, and we just went without anything but an idea, and we went on this cruise for a week, and we filmed a bunch, and we got back we went out of Miami around the Caribbean, and we got back to Miami on March 8th, and a week later everything was shut down.
Yep. I mean, that aside, you know, it always amazes me the amount of time, you know, any kind of documentary film takes to get made, and how many years and years and years of filming, editing, refilming, and what that process looks like. Like, you think it should just be something really simple as you go out and you film for a couple days or a couple weeks somewhere, and then you edit it, and it's something you can put together, you know, really quickly. And it is, you know, the more we have brought other documentary filmmakers into to these events and these conversations, it's so surprising to me what a lengthy journey it is. So obviously, we're going to want you guys to talk a little bit about that, and, you know, some of the processes along the way and whatnot. So, you know, we're really excited for you to be here. So I'm going to start out with, why don't you guys introduce yourselves a little bit, and maybe give us a quick introduction into, you know, how you got started working with 455 Films. Joe, I think you started the company, if I remember correctly.
No, I didn't. Actually, Dave Zapone down here. Dave, I think everything should start with Dave.
All right.
Yeah, well, now that I got my computer working, yes, we can start with me. Yeah, I started 455 in 2009, and it was started primarily as a vehicle to produce documentaries with William Shatner, who I was fortunate enough to have met several years prior. And we had done a film called Gonzo Ballet, which was, he did an album with Ben Folds in 2004. And then the Milwaukee Ballet took that album and created a ballet. And we did a documentary about Gonzo Ballet, and it won a lot of awards. Joe, as Bill would say, it got great notices, of course. And yeah, it did really well. And then Bill and I had the idea to do a documentary on the captains of Star Trek. And who better to interview the captains than Bill Shatner? So we got all of them at the time, including Chris Pine, that's a whole story in itself, but to participate. And that was really the birth of 455. Okay. So from there, we did a film on Star Trek conventions called Get a Life. And Joe, that's around when we met. Yeah. And Joe helped with posts there, but I also had another incredibly daunting task. We sold the Captains. It was a 97-minute documentary. Again, well received, very successful. And Epix, the network, ordered 5 spin-off episodes on all of the Captains. So there was no way that I could do this without any help. And I'm at Paramount, and I was at the gym looking for an editor to help out. And that's how Joe and I met. And Joe, that was 2012.
Yeah,
I think.
and I wasn't at the I wasn't at the gym.
No,
but
no,
some
he was referred to me
colleagues of
by
mine
some
were.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, how does that conversation come up between two people working out at the gym? Like most of my friends are, get out of my way.
because you know we're all the great thing about Paramount, at least it used to be before things got really quiet here, is you're all in the same business. So I'd meet people in the cafeteria, I'd meet people at the
Okay.
gym. And it happened to be two guys in post-production that Joe has worked with. We were all in a boot camp class. And I said, I need help. I have these 5 episodes that we have to deliver. And it's impossible for myself and the editor we had at the time to do it. So yeah, and Joe, right? You came in and we were kind of off.
Yeah, yeah. I came in for I think it was like a 3-week job to do Get a Life, which was not Get a Life. Not with Get a Life. It was an interview with Christopher Plummer from the Captains called Still Kicking. And it was just a simple 3-camera shoot. And about 5
Joe,
minutes
tell
of
them
that.
because this is editorial. How when I walked in and saw the split screen, that was it. It was like that's the coolest.
Oh yeah. So I, this was back using Final Cut Pro. I think it was version 7, and the multicam functionality wasn't the greatest. So I would do shrink the images down to 50% and put them side by side so I could see both cameras or all 3 cameras in this case, so that I could do so I could make some decisions based on what I was seeing there. And these guys, Dave and Kevin, were like, "Oh, that's great!" So that became a motif in that film of sometimes having both the interviewer or the both conversationalists, that not in a master shot but in a 2 split screen thing. So we did that that became a thing for us for a little while. But yeah.
So Dave, let me follow up there. Prior to 455 Films, what's some of your background? What got you into filmmaking, documentary filmmaking, television, etc.?
Well, I majored in film at Vassar College many years ago.
2003. I was not major film at Vassar, but
You're Vassar?
I did. Yep.
Oh, good times. Where? What was your dorm?
I lived in Davison for 3 years, and
I lived in Davison for a while. Yep.
And then I was in the terrace apartments for senior year.
The TAs. I was in the THs. Okay, and noise. But anyway, all right. So was Ken Robinson still there, or Jim Stearman in drama and film?
Oh, I didn't take a single drama class.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was computer science. I was one of the 2 people there that did science.
Yeah, that's rare. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I love Vassar, and I was a film drama major. And then I took kind of a 10-year detour working with my dad in real estate investment and things, which was very positive and valuable. And then around 99, I said, my love is really film. That's what I want to do. So I had some acting background. I moved to New York City from Connecticut and got into SAG and then started acting, which I hated. But it was a means to an end, essentially. I knew I did not want to be an actor, but it was a great way to get into the business and meet people. And then I was fortunate enough to meet Burt Reynolds and study with him. And then he got me a film role, kind of a co-starring role in a film, which we won't mention, and was not that good.
Oh,
but
I go to IMDb and look up.
No.
And then see
I shouldn't say it. But and then I started working with the production company that produced the film, and they were in LA at Raleigh Studios, which is right across Melrose here from Paramount, and just started producing and got into features. Produced things on 35. Horror film I'm very proud of called Babysitter Wanted, all shot on 35, which in 2006 was, already kind of dying out. And then I got the good fortune to meet William Shatner, and he handed me
Dave,
ballet. Yeah.
Who was in Babysitter, the Babysitter movie?
Babysitter Wanted.
Yeah.
The Non Visitor.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Kristen Dalton, Bruce just a great cast. And really, it was, I'm not a big horror fan, but for a horror film, it was a good film. And then met Bill, started Gonzo Ballet, and then I pretty much told you that was it. Off to documentaries. Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
All right, Joe, you're up next. So we know how you came into 455 Films. Tell us a little bit, how your experiences leading up to that, what got you into filmmaking, and how you got started doing, what you're doing.
Well, I started as an actor as a child. I think when I was 6, I was in a production of the Nutcracker Suite, and that was interesting. And then when I was about 10, a classmate of mine, friend, said, "Hey, I'm in this children's repertory company, and you should come do it." But I didn't know where it was. I knew it was down. I live in the Fairfax district of LA, and it was somewhere on Melrose, and I lived like a block away from Melrose. And when I was 10, I just walked about a mile and a half down the road trying to find this place. I couldn't find it. I told my mom. She talked to my friend's mom, and next thing you know, I was started doing plays, and I did some outside of that repertory company. I did some small plays in theaters around town in LA, and then I was acting in junior high and high school, and I actually got some scholarships, but my folks weren't going to let me act and go to college and pay money to become an actor. And then I started taking film and television courses, and I gravitated towards editing. I also wanted to write and direct at the time, and I did, but I ended up getting a job as an editor, as an apprenticeship, and worked in post-production. That was about 30 years ago. And so I was at the tail end of the analog as things were transitioning to computers. And my mom, when I was in college, had bought me a 386, which I was scared to use at first, but then I started playing games and started tinkering under the hood, and that kind of helped me right when this transition to digital happened. A lot of people were in post-production were not so computer savvy, but because I wanted to be able to play some of these games, and I had to free up memory and figure out all those things. I remember at this post house, we got we had a Chiron before, but they sent us this company, I think it was Inscriber. We got this really great 386 or 486 with all these fonts that we could now superimpose, as opposed to these big 7-inch floppies that we used to have load all the font. You could only load 4 fonts at a time on the Chiron. It was just a nightmare to do all this stuff. You had to trigger all this stuff. So then I ended up within a few years, I was working on Avids in theatrical advertising and cutting trailers and TV spots and for all kinds of stuff. And so I did that for well, I'm still doing that kind of work, but when I met Dave a decade ago, I had gotten laid off from a post company. My main clients at all, MGM had folded, and a couple other smaller film studios had shut doors, and so and I was like the lead on those three accounts, and so all of a sudden I had to do some reassessment of my life, and it was I had a little rough spot, but I was talking with my wife, and I said, I got into this business to tell stories, and I kind of felt like a lot of the advertising stuff was ephemeral, and it didn't really have a life past, once a film comes out or a TV show comes out, all that stuff that you worked on for years doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just kind of fodder. And I wanted to do something a little different. And then I met Dave, and we went, I started making these documentaries with him, and I got a lot of one, encouragement from him, and two, a lot of license to bring in a lot of my ideas. And I really like that. And so I feel blessed that, I've been able over the last decade with Dave and Luke and many of our collaborators tell stories that I think are interesting and make a little living from that. But I also have a gig that affords me the latitude to bounce between the two.
So you've basically been involved in all of the Star Trek documentaries, save for the captains. That was sort of the first one, and you got brought
Yeah,
afterwards. Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
All right, Luke, you're up next.
Hi there. I actually got started with the team here on For the Love of Spock. That came about by kind of circumstance as I came to California to study filmmaking, wanted to direct all that business. And I went to the New York Film Academy, which has a campus in Los Angeles. And one of my instructors for directing at the school was a guy named Adam Nimoy, who is the son of Leonard Nimoy. And so, through just kind of working with him in the school and, becoming acquaintances that way, he brought me on to kind of do some personal projects for him. Okay. Cinematographer on a music video for his son. We did some, personal projects together revolving around the character of Spock. Leonard Nimoy's Boston was one of them, a little made-for-TV documentary about the life of Leonard Nimoy. And Adam, at the time, was kind of working with his dad on a feature documentary about the character of Spock. And they were putting something together. I think Dave had conversations with Adam about working with that and how that was going to come up. And during the course of that pre-production area, Leonard Nimoy passed away. And suddenly that film became something completely different. And so when that shifted gears, and I think a crowdfunding campaign was started for that film. After that crowdfunding campaign, they had the ability to start bringing in some additional people to help work on the film. Adam was, nice enough to recommend myself and brought me in. I met Joe and Dave and the rest of the team at 455 and just started going from there. And I've been on all of their films since.
Awesome. So, Luke, you mentioned personal projects and whatnot, and that was a question sort of I wanted to ask all three of you, because personal projects are so impactful and so meaningful usually. What sticks out in your mind in terms of personal projects that you've had that have sort of helped you get into documentary filmmaking or have helped with that? Or do you just do some of your own mini documentaries and do it yourself, and it's just for the fun of it? Actually, one of the questions we had from the audience already was just sort of tips for hobby documentary filmmakers who are just doing this for the love of it.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm actually have a side project that is a passion project and this goes back to my childhood and the neighborhood I grew up in and the high school I went to in Los Angeles. Most of my close friends are musicians, and I grew up with a lot of great musicians. And I play guitar, but I don't consider myself a musician. But a lot of my friends are, or people that I went through school with. And some of those people, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, about 5 years older than me, but like I used to hang out with like their original guitar player who passed away. His brother was a grade above me. And I have an uncle who's of their age, who's only 5 years older than me. So I went to school with Slash. My friend Rami is in the Foo Fighters and was in the Wallflowers before that, and a bunch of other bands. And then there's other guys. This guy Dave Kushner, who ended up playing in Velvet Revolver with Slash and all those guys. And then the band NoFX, the guitar player Eric Melvin went to my high school. I have a lot of other friends that make a living in the music business but aren't as well known. And I actually made a documentary at the first post house I worked at about, and this was in the mid 90s. I had just done a music video with them out of pocket that we shot on 16 and had telecine and all this stuff. And I had been filming them on VHSs and not even TV, like high 8 and video and all this stuff. And I had all this footage, and we made this music video, and literally a week after we shot it, the band broke up, and they'd been together for like a decade. And so I was pissed off, and I had all this stuff, and I made a 15-minute documentary about them. And that actually was one of my close friends who was in that band. We had talked about doing something about this at the time, back in the 90s, but I didn't know how to do it, you know, how to fund that or to really pull that off. I mean, things were a lot harder in the 90s than they are today. And working on all these docs with Dave, and then in the last few years since we started Voyager, I was primarily a post guy, but right in 2020, I was refinancing my house because we were going to do some renovations, and I set aside some money, and I bought a couple of Blackmagic cameras and tripods, and I basically kitted it out. Looked at some YouTube videos to how to build all that gear up, and found things that I liked, and I bought those things, and I talked with Luke about it a lot, and you know, and I didn't really know. I mean, I'd shot with camcorders and stuff, but I didn't really, you know, and I had a 5D at one point, but I would not call myself a camera person. But in the last 3 years, having those cameras, we've used those cameras on all of these productions that we're doing. You know, Dave and 455 Films, aside from Voyager, we have some like three other projects that we're developing. One was a leg of something that Dave started a decade ago that's been sort of in the can that we're developing, but we have a couple other offshoots that are Star Trek related, but they're not. Well, one's more social.
They both are, Joe. They both are in a way, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, so now I consider myself even more of a documentarian.
Is that one of the cameras that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's that's my Manfrotto tripod, which I believe I bought from B&H, had shipped to me. And I believe I got most of my accessories either off of B&H or Amazon. I've got
no, you got them all from B&H. That's the only.
I got them all from B&H.
Everything from B&H.
Hey, I got to give a shout out.
I got quite a we use B&H a lot. So
well, Joe, I was going to say I've been using B&H since the 80s because I'm from New York and still have a place in Hoboken, and I used to get my Super 8 film from B&H. I don't know if you guys still have it because I just got a new Super 8 camera. So
Dave's got us all.
So Dave, you'll have to, if you've got the place in Hoboken, you're going to have to come back in September and attend B&H's 50th anniversary party.
Oh, I would love to.
They're planning a big trade show celebration camera.
Absolutely.
Experience. September what is 6th and 7th, I think, Derek, right? I remember correctly. We're going to be at there. Like I've been planning a booth.
Is that Labor Day weekend?
I think it's like the Tuesday and Wednesday after Labor Day weekend or something. So.
I come back often to film, and a lot of our documentaries, like we filmed Cape Mulgrew. Was that 2 years ago, Joe? I can remember now.
Yeah,
when I was back there around Labor Day, same thing. So yeah, I'd love to come. I love B&H.
Pete, if I could jump in with a question here for the guys.
Yeah,
I want to know when going into planning a documentary, how much of the story do you guys have extracted before you go into it, and how much is it like, okay, we have a general idea, or how do you handle, you know, you go in and it might be one direction you thought you were going, and then you get into the production aspect and you find another story, or you find a story that might be better than the original angle. How do you guys go about that?
Well, depending on the project, I think with the captains, that was pretty straightforward, but then, you know, Bill interviewing the captains, but so we didn't really have a roadmap. We don't have an outline because you don't know where the interview is going to take you. But as he got deeper into it and talked to each actor, it became clear that they all had a similar background. And we started exploring that and what led them and what were the commonalities in their education and upbringing that led them to this role. Actually, you know what, Joe, the best, and Luke, the best example is probably Get a Life. So that was the third one Bill and I did. It's called William Shatner's Get a Life. It's about Star Trek conventions. So we just wanted to chronicle this whole phenomenon, Star Trek convention. And we're doing it. And then as we're going through it, we just figured it was just going to be, again, a chronicle or a record of these events. And then we found out that there was something much deeper going on. We interviewed a professor who likened a Star Trek convention or Star Trek fandom almost to a religion. And that led us to Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth. And so then we all of a sudden are interviewing the head of the Joseph Campbell Foundation. So there was no way in the beginning that we had any idea that we would end up there. And then the last example I'll give is, and then Joe and Luke, you can jump in. Spock, For the Love of Spock, started with Leonard and I and Adam. Leonard was going to be involved. And so it's going to be an interview with Leonard, and we fill it all in. And Adam's concept and Leonard's at first was just to make it about Spock and not so much Leonard, but we were going to change that. And then Leonard passed away. And then it totally shifted to becoming Adam Nimoy's point of view. So again, nothing you could predict at the outset. So that's what I love about documentaries, is you really are thinking on your feet all the time.
I think documentary filmmaking is interesting because there are so many different ways that you can go. It's the one, I think, type of filmmaking where you can have a complete concrete plan and just nail that from beginning to end and it never changes. Or it can be so completely have zero plan whatsoever and you just find the story as you go along. I mean, not a lot of mediums have that flexibility and latitude to kind of shift completely. You hear about documentaries all the time where it's just chronicling someone's life and you don't know what the story is going to be. You're just going to film them for, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. There's some documentaries that shoot for 7 to 10 years before they even nail down what the story is going to be. I think the Star Trek documentaries that we've been doing as of recently are kind of a hybrid in the middle, where we lay out what we think we would like to tell as far as a narrative story is concerned. We have the building blocks for everything. We write down ideas on postcards and we pin them to a wall and we figure out what the flow is going to be. But when you're interviewing someone and when you start listening to stories that they have to tell, you realize that there are other stories that maybe you didn't think of before you went into it. And the documentary can kind of evolve and become something different. So you got to have a little bit of flexibility to kind of go with the flow and see where it wants to take you. But for us, it is nice to kind of have a little bit of an idea of where you want to go when you're getting started.
Yeah.
Yep.
You need a framework to start with, but then you have to be receptive to listening to what everybody says and go, okay, we thought the story was this, but wow, all of a sudden you have 20 people talking about something that you didn't think about, but they all have something. And that's always, sometimes you have a person tells one great story, and so you want to have that moment be its thing. But sometimes you're talking about a subject and you have a bunch of voices talking about it, and they all have a different perspective. And that to me is interesting because it's Rashomon and everybody sees things differently and memory is different and all these things. So, that's
probably
that's the fun.
From one connection, you get introduced to other people involved in the project that we never thought we would interview these people. And, suddenly there's more people you're connected to that are related to, in this case, Voyager.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of it is preconceived, as Luke said. You have to have a plan.
Yeah.
Like with Voyager's the perfect example. We started the interviews, our main interviews, when we finally had the funding and the studio. with the parent UPN, the Paramount Network. So we decided to start to dive in first with the executives and find out how the show came to be and how it was the flagship of this fledgling or new network. And then from there, we went to the actors and then the directors. And I think one thing that sets us apart, I'd like to think, in the Star Trek documentaries is we go deep. I mean, we interview every aspect of production, right down to PAs. We actually, and got some great stories, right, Joe and Luke? I mean, we got
yeah. Oh, you've sent me some great photos. We're going to go through most of them. And I was just like, I mean, this is such a fun event for me because Voyager is probably my all-time favorite television show of any show in existence. So seeing some of the people that you interviewed with, it's like, okay, how many times have I watched these episodes over and over and over again? And you see the same, executive producer name, and then suddenly you're like, oh, that's who that is, and you're interviewing them. And I just noticed so many names of people that were involved in the production that weren't actors, and it's just I'm very curious to hear how they were a part of all of this and what they have to say.
Yeah. I mean, we love the production people on Star Trek, the team that Rick Berman and Gene put together and lasted for 18 years. A lot of them went through all these series. We have such a wonderful relationship with these people, and the level of professionalism and the sense of family. That's what's really made these kind of easy to do in a way. Yeah, there you go.
This is
that was one of our first shoots after in 2021. So after the cruise, this was maybe our second or third shoot.
I think we had done Brannon solo, right, Joe? And then we went to
so the people sitting in the chair on the left is Brannon Braga, who was one of the main writers and showrunner for seasons 4 through 6, and he had also worked on The Next Generation as a writer producer, and then he went on with Rick Berman, who's on the right there, who's the Grand Poobah of all Star Trek,
because he wrote the best episode of Voyager ever called Threshold, which is the best episode.
Well, that's controversial, as you know.
Yes. Where Robbie McNeil turns it, or Tom Paris turns into a lizard.
Yeah. Didn't Michael? Didn't they win an Emmy for either makeup or special effects?
I was going to say, I think that's like one of the few episodes of Voyager that won an Emmy, and it's just hilarious that it's that one.
Yeah. Well, we do speak to Robbie McNeil about it. So.
I see we got a question from May Barella, who's one of our backers.
Oh, we know her.
Thank you. She asked us, do we have a time frame when the documentary will premiere? We're planning on next year, but we don't know exactly when. I mean, spring would be nice, but we'll see. But the goal is to get this film done and out next year. And we will. The
good news is we get closer
to the end.
We're done with
I just want to say,
photography. Yeah, principal photography.
Yeah, we're deep in editorial right now, and we're just figuring out the film. We have a lot of great stuff, and we're going to have to figure out what we absolutely have to have and what we can jettison, because we want to keep this to a feature length and not a mini series.
Yeah. So you mentioned
that kind of goes with this kind of film, as Dave said, when you go deep, as deep as we go, and you interview so many people, down to the PAs and the people that hand mail off to the writers, it means that you have hundreds and hundreds of hours of media to go through. So it's not a quick film to put together by any means, but we are deep in editorial.
Okay, that's good to know. So you mentioned that May was one of your backers. Is she like an official backer, or is she part of the crowdfunding that you did? Because I want you to talk a little bit about the crowdfunding part and how you started that, because that's actually what connected me to you. Was I saw your crowdfunding request, and I was kind of like, I wonder if they need hard drives because it's Voyager and I want to be a part of this in some way.
Well, I think
we are so thank you, thankful.
Yeah, I'll speak to the history of it, Joe, then you take it over for Voyager. But it started with For the Love of Spock. because we had this mandate from Leonard Nimoy, and he had passed. And Adam and I, we took a month off, by the way, of course, when Leonard passed, and then Adam and I got back together. And surprisingly, it wasn't so. That's the thing with a documentary; they're difficult to fund, very, very difficult. So we were having a little trouble finding a studio that would back us and enable us to make the film. So I said to Adam, let's try crowdfunding. And it was the first time we'd ever done it. We knew nothing about it. And we went to Kickstarter and ended up raising over $600,000. Now, that's not enough money to make the film, to release the film. But what it does is it gives you autonomy, and it lets you begin production immediately. And that's what the crowdfunding did. And everybody was skeptical, but we did it. And so that worked. And then Deep Space Nine came along.
Yep.
And Ira Bear and myself and Luke and Joe were all working together. And that's a real labor of love for me. Because after I did a film called Chaos on the Bridge, which with William Shatner, which looks the first 3 years of Next Generation, we did. And after that, Bill had enough of Star Trek. And so I wanted to do Deep Space Nine because it was my personal favorite. And I went to Ira and I said, Ira, would you be Bill, essentially, Shatner? Would you be the interviewer and take us through the series that you ran? And so that worked out great, but we needed the money. So after Spock, we tried Indiegogo, crowdfunding again. What did we end up on Deep Space Nine? Around closer to 700, I think. Is that right?
That sounds in the ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, anyway, it was an increase. And so then Voyager comes along, and everybody tells me I'm crazy. You don't want to do Voyager. It's enough Star Trek, but I really believed in it. And we launched that campaign, as Joe had indicated, in 2021, the heart of the pandemic. So it could have gone either way. People were, everything was up in the air. On the one hand, people were tight for money. On the other hand, they were consuming content, streaming and everything. And we're on the social media. So we ended up becoming the most successfully crowdfunded film in history with somewhere around 1.5 million.
Okay, yeah. It's
been a steady progression.
That in like the first day or something too, wasn't it?
No, in the first day we hit our, Joe, you take it for, and Luke, you guys were more involved.
So we were the most crowdfunded documentary film in history.
Well, did I say film?
Veronica, yeah.
Wait a minute, Joe. I didn't qualify that. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, that's all right. I think Veronica Mars.
I was just going to say, I was like,
there's a few Mystery Science Theater. There's a few ahead of us.
Yeah. So we raised $1.3 million. People, when we did Kickstarter for The Love of Spock, that was a scary thing because it's all or nothing. You put out a number and you say, hey, we're going to hit this. And we were like, everybody told us, oh, and I'm talking about Kickstarter, you're going to make $1 million. It'll raise $1 million. And we were like, okay, well, why don't we do 600,000? And we're like, everybody was very confident that would be no problem. And we got, like, in the first 3 days, we got to $180,000, and we were like, all right, great. And then you learn the truth of crowdfunding, that there's these peaks at the beginning and at the end, and then there's all these valleys in between for so it was a month-long process.
It's a 30-day campaign, and boy, you've got to keep trying to sustain the momentum, and it's tough in the middle.
You guys lucked out in that you have a huge fan base to pull from, but like, what other recommendations can you give to the audience who may be trying to crowdsource for, a fan base or something that isn't?
What we learned is really quickly is that we had to come out with content constantly to engage people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Updates. It was short. We did so much for that and for what we left behind. I mean, we were constantly, doing, and with what we left behind, we were doing things with Andy Robinson, who played Garrick. He
Jonathan
did a bunch of
Frakes.
things with us.
Yeah.
Jonathan Frakes,
Yeah.
Luke and Kai and Adam, Dave. I was dealing with something that day, but they took together. They did this short film in a parking lot that was,
It was a lot of fun,
just great. If you ever look it up on YouTube, it's so much fun. Jonathan Frakes is
He's
in
playing
disguise
Mr.
because
F.
he
Right, Joe?
he can't let his next generation castmates know that he's helping to fund a Deep Space Nine documentary. It was we just had so much fun doing those things, but you have to do that stuff during a
But Joe,
crowdfunding campaign.
I think we need to give a shout out here to Ryan Husk, who is our social media and
Definitely.
campaign manager. That's the key, in my opinion. And it ties into what Joe was saying. You need to have a constant social media presence. And Ryan is brilliant at just keeping our profile up. I mean, he's deserves a lot of the credit for Voyager because he did such a tremendous job on social media. So
we met Ryan. He had him and Sirach Lofton, who was a cast member from Deep Space Nine. They do a podcast called The Seventh Rule, and we knew Sirach, and Sirach and Ryan invited Dave and I on to be interviewed. This is before we did the crowdfunding. We even thought we were talking about crowdfunding, but we hadn't gotten there. And this was at the height of the pandemic. And Sirach said, you should talk to Ryan about working with you on this. And when we got to know Ryan, he moderates a bunch of fan groups on a bunch of different platforms. He's a big fan himself, and he puts on virtual conventions, and so he really was the perfect person. We had already done 2 crowdfunding campaigns and built a lot of goodwill with the work that we had done, and then we were partnered with this guy who's really tapped into the fan base audience that we're creating this content for. So it was a perfect storm of in a good way for all involved.
And also part of the crowdfunding, and I'm wearing the shirt that you guys sent me as part of the crowdfunding giveaways. How important is creating swag items, and what was involved in that? Like, is that something?
All right, now we throw it to Luke.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna touch base on that real quickly, because there's probably people who want to know about the nature of crowdfunding and make that successful. Step number 1, obviously, is having a base, a community that's ready to jump on it. There's no getting around that. The more people that you already have that are aware of the kind of things that you make, you're going to be more successful, rather than just coming out of nowhere, being like a shadow in the night trying to ask people for money. It's very difficult, and it's kind of a catch-22, because you kind of have to treat a crowdfunding campaign as a storefront that's pre-selling your film. The problem is that it's not a store, right? The money that you raise, you want to actually invest into the film. But because you got to treat it like a store, you have to have physical merchandise, you have to have all of these things that people will want to actually put their money towards. But that's also going to take away time and fun from your film, because now you have to dedicate resources to the fulfillment of all of that merchandise, the creation of all of that merchandise, the design of all of that merchandise. But if you didn't have any of that, and you literally just said, okay, here's our film, you can pre-purchase the film, and that's all you have, we would be completely unsuccessful. We would not go anywhere. The film alone, not enough to get people to reach into their wallets and say, I want to see this thing through to the end, because it may take 2, 3, 4 years. You have to have something else that's a little exciting. And for us, we found that t-shirts, things like pins, digital postcards, those are the kind of things that get people talking and get people want to actually contribute to your campaign. And you don't throw everything at them at once either, because we can't. We hadn't even designed half of the stuff when the campaign launched. But you want to have things that you can keep revitalizing the freshness of the campaigns. 15 days in, here's something else that we've unlocked for you. But to do it all up front, it's a very tough challenge. And again, without a base behind you, it's hard to be successful in the crowdfunding world. You need to have really smart people who know what they're doing, who can act in the community and keep everyone engaged.
And I must say, you guys did a great job with the swag items. I mean, I got the shirt, I've got the Janeway mug that you guys gave out, and you gave out a whole set of commemorative pins of all the characters and whatnot. And it just, you did such a great job of making it so relevant and to Voyager specifically, and just coming up with really cute things. Like, I would have never have thought to have a, captain's mug, and it's a great little nod to the series.
And Luke
Shout out
designed
to Luke.
most of it himself, which is
Oh, very
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
Is that still the best route, guys? Is that like, would you, if you were to recommend it for somebody who were starting out, would you say to go that route, the crowdfunding route, or is there other avenues to explore that you would recommend?
Well, I mean, the other way to go is to find investors, and that's not always so easy. However, I will qualify this. We're very fortunate in that we're working in Star Trek. So, and we're sanctioned by CBS and Paramount, by the way. We don't work for them, but we have their permission to use the trademark, and they approve of all the t-shirts and everything that we do. So we're working in conjunction with them. So we're in a very fortunate, unique position. But again,
That wasn't always
crowdfunding-
true, though. But that wasn't always true, Dave,
No.
right?
No, you're right, Joe. You're right.
We,
It
after we
really
did
was
For the Love of Spock.
I think, that opened the door. Because I've been working with them for years, obviously, kind of at arm's length, but they loved For the Love of Spock. And then What We Left Behind. I mean, how could they not? These love letters to their series and their franchise. So, and that's continued on Voyager. So crowdfunding is only successful really as your social media presence, and how relevant or how many fans there are out there. But again, if no one knows what you're doing, then it's a waste of time. So I had hired initially a professional PR firm who did well, but then I realized that with social media where it's gone, you need people like Ryan, and before Ryan, we had a great guy named Kai DeMello Folsom, who was terrific in the same role. So to me, that's the key. If no one knows what you're doing, then it's just not going to work.
Right.
A great point. I mean, I think what you guys said about having a product out there, that's huge. Knowing what people are getting, what are people putting their interest, their investment in. And I can imagine it got exponentially easier with every film. People are knowing, hey, this is what we know.
They make quality work, and I really enjoyed it. And now they're going to do it for the next series. And it just gets easier.
I think that's what makes each campaign more successful than the last, is because we're not coming in completely blind. The people that are funding this, the people that are contributing to this, can see the past work. So there's a reputation behind it. Coming out the gate with nothing to show is obviously a much more difficult ask.
Right.
Does that lead in towards being more loose or creative with what you guys are going to do, or kind of pushing the boundaries? Does that affect the creative process in any way? Knowing, I mean, obviously it's got to be incredibly stressful going in, and it's your first project, and you're like, well, we don't even know what we're going to get funded for. Does that get easier, or does that allow you guys to push the creative bounds?
I think yes and no. One, we're aware of what we've done before, and we don't want to repeat ourselves. We're already have done quite a few films in this Star Trek realm, so it's always got to, creatively for us, it needs to be different in how, as different from what we've done before. So that's the big pressure. At the same time, that's also the fun and the challenge of it. And I think we're all up for the challenge of trying to figure out how to make something that's good. I mean, a personal goal of mine is that I want all the films all the Star Trek films that we've worked on to appeal have an audience that, like, you know, a guy might be or a woman might be married to a Star Trek fan, but they aren't. But they come and see the film and they go, "Wow, I had no idea that was interesting on a level that I didn't expect." And they might not be a fan of the show, but they thought the storytelling was interesting. Or they may go, "Well, you know what? I'm going to check that film out." And we've heard those things, and that's a win for me in this process. That's what I look for.
And what I'm very pleased with is we have so many repeat backers.
Yeah.
I mean, right, Joe and Luke? I mean, we have people going back to Spock. A lot of our What We Left Behind people are now on Voyager. So, yeah, that's
are those people, you know, are the majority of your backers just sort of somebody that found it via social media who are, you know, contributing $10, $20, $50, or are you starting to get larger backers and build those relationships and have people come back and say, here's, you know, $10,000 towards it, here's $50,000 towards it?
Well,
we have both.
Yeah, you guys can speak to that. Yeah,
we have both, but we try to limit those $10,000 backers too. You know, we try to make those exclusive things. It's a select. It's only, you know, we're talking, you know, less than 50 people are willing to pony up that kind of cash. I would say that it's between those heavy hitters, those big spenders, and the masses, they kind of equal each other out. Maybe a little bit more on the lower end.
Yeah,
the people
Well,
that buy the Blu-rays.
the Blu-rays are definitely the biggest, but we also do a lot of experiential things like going wine tasting with the actors of Star Trek, having dinners before the cruise or in Vegas with all the actors, and those have been very successful. The only reason
those are fundraising events.
They're fundraising events, exactly.
Okay.
But the reason why they work is because the Star Trek actors are so generous with their time. I mean, we've done these guys will tell you, I mean, we get 7, 8 actors at a dinner in Vegas. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
And that's a big part of that is due to one of our other producers that's not here, Lolita Baggio, who, you know, Lolita, actually, she worked, going back to the Star Trek The Next Generation, she worked in the writers building. She was a script coordinator, and she, you know, became very close. She worked very closely with Gene Roddenberry and Rick Berman and all the Star Trek writers. And she started in the 90s managing these actors. Managing the actors for the she started in the 80s with Star Trek, but she, on the side, the conventions were going on, and she started managing the actors' appearances at conventions, and she actually also promoted some conventions herself. And so she has decades-long relationships with even the actors that she didn't manage. She knows them all, and she's, you know, very big part of that fan community and the convention circuit that they all do. And so our access to have those actors come for those experiential things are not exclusive to her, because Dave has a lot of good relationships with the actors as well, and but Lolita is a big factor in that. So you can see it's a multi-pronged approach, and there's a lot of different people that have different talents that we've been fortunate to work with.
Joe, Lolita's
community.
Lolita's the reason why this film exists, because she was the one that got us on the 2020 Star Trek cruise. So that's what started this whole process. Without Lolita, we would not have the relationship with ECP, the great company that runs the Star Trek cruises, because we've now been on 3. But that's all thanks to Lolita.
Yeah.
All right. So that sort of ties me into one of the questions I wanted to talk with you. Like these actors, obviously, I mean, I'm assuming they volunteer their time with you and whatnot, or are you meeting them in places at conventions and activities that they're going? Like, how do you get access to them, and how do you arrange that? And, you know, tell us a little bit about that experience. And, you know, people also in these events, they'll ask questions about like, what kind of releases do you need to get from them, and what kind of clearances and copyrights and things like that.
Well, I guess I could speak a little to that. I mean, we get a general release. Everybody signs one, all the actors.
Okay.
Gives us the right to use it. But, you know, by virtue of them sitting down and being interviewed on camera, it's pretty clear they're there of their own free will. But yeah, they sign releases. And what we're very fortunate with, again, this speaks to our relationship with CBS Paramount that owns Star Trek, is we clear our clips. We do not go fair use. We work together with them to make an arrangement to show all the Star Trek content. So we're unique, I think, in some ways in that. But yeah, that's really all it is. It's just getting a general release. If you're in a situation where you do not have a release form for them to sign, you can actually ask people to give an on-camera release and say, I freely give my permission for you to use this footage. So that's the other way to go. But yeah, that's really about all it is, just getting a release signed. Yeah.
Great.
And then to your question about where do we get these people, you know, so one, we live in Los Angeles. So a lot of the actors and a lot of the behind the scenes people live in Los Angeles, or they still have friends or family, so they will come to Los Angeles. So so that's definitely convenient for us making these films to have so many people that live here. But not everybody does, or people are working you know, all over the world doing other shows and as directors and actors and whatnot. So a convention is a great place to get those things, because those people are coming there to do that. You know, obviously, not obviously, but, you know, you have to talk to you have to let the convention promoters know what's going on. You don't want to be duplicitous and do something and because they paid for that actor to come there, and they're putting those actors up. So, you know, we have to work with the convention promoters and be very above board about what our intentions are and what we're doing. And, you know, we try and not piss anybody off. We try and, you know, be respectful of everybody involved, because, you know, so that we can do the job that we do. But yeah, conventions are a great place to do that. You know, we try and pick a weekend or a couple weekends and get as many people, you know, when, like, we were on a set for 12 days and we shot for 10 days in 2021. And that was fabulous. We had, I think, 36 interviews that we conducted. You know, we had 3 of those Blackmagic Pocket 6K cameras going.
Was that in London?
You know, no, that was in Burbank.
Okay, I was looking at the photos you sent me. I was going to show some from London. You could talk about it, but if it's a different.
Okay, well, so we did.
Was that Soapbox?
We did Soapbox
Soapbox
in Burbank, and that was a big one. And we had a set that was designed by 2 art directors from the Orville that were recommended by Doug Drexler and Andre Bormanis. Andre Bormanis is a writer, producer on the Orville, and Doug Drexler is a legend in the Star Trek world. He won Academy Award with his makeup partner for Dick Tracy in the 80s, who was a makeup artist on The Next Generation, and then switched over to the art department for Deep Space Nine. He did some work behind the scenes that was not known by the higher ups on Voyager. Went on to work with Ron Moore. Oh, that's Chris Crossgrove, who Dave and I actually were just working with this last week. Chris, that's Ryan Husk. Chris Crossgrove was a camera op on Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. That's us with Brian Fuller in the green jumpsuit and George Takei. George was in an episode.
Is that Lolita behind George?
Yep.
That's Lolita behind George. It's Paul Camuso in the pink shirt. There's Doug Drexler. This is the set that our Kit and Daniel Sachs.
I'm going to go through these really quick because literally this folder had 341 images in it that you sent me. And I don't need you to describe all of them, but I'm just going to showcase them for people.
George,
so if any of them jump out at you, and that's Brad, isn't it? That's George.
Brad.
Okay.
So
if anything jumps out as I'm scrolling through these, like give us some tidbits and whatnot.
Brian Fuller.
Well, so that's set. So you see those are if you're a Star Trek fan, you know the holodeck when there's no holograms going on. That's what they look like. Our art directors realized that those were used in conventions for putting up booths where you had artwork on it. And you take it off, and all of a sudden you have a holodeck. And so they designed that. We had a Chapman dolly on with one of the cameras. That's the back of Jonathan West, who is our DP consultant. Who was
and tell us about some of the gear that you're using in these as well, because I know people love to know what cameras and lighting equipment and other pieces of.
We were shooting with 3 Blackmagic Pocket 6K cameras, shooting 6K film with or digitally to SSDs. We had a ton of Astera tubes that you can see back there. Those are those different colored tubes that we had a guy who had an iPad that could control. We had I don't know, we had like a couple hundred of those tubes, and they would change. You could program the color changes in there. We also had that floor was built by them, designed by them. Those lines are taped. People actually, art directors put tape down and on everything to get it to look very holodeck. We had our sound guy Pablo. Was it Pablo, Dave? Pascal.
Yes.
Pascal Bach.
Pascal.
We had a boom, and then we had lavaliers, and he was going into his recorder. I don't know what recorder he had, but we had the lighting for this shoot. We had a full grip package, lighting package. We had 5. We had a key grip and an electrician and the guys pushing the dolly, and those guys, they were great. They were all pros that Jonathan hired a best boy that he works with, and those were all his guys, and they were phenomenal. I mean, they really upped our production value, and we did a lot in this. That's Dan Curry, the great Dan Curry. That's Helene, who is one of our producers. That's my buddy Chris doing media management. Yeah, those are our art directors.
I noticed you've interviewed a lot of cast members who are not part of Voyager, and I don't think I've really seen that in past documentaries. I don't think I saw in What We Left Behind. I don't think I saw non-DS9 actors in that.
Well, George Takei was in a 2-parter of Voyager.
Oh, that is true. That's right. You got Chase Masters in there.
Chase was. That's true.
You have Nana there as well.
And Nana was there to speak to the strength of Kate and
as was women. Chase.
Yeah,
Kate Mulgrew's character, Captain Janeway, was such an inspiration, and other women in Star Trek recognize the importance of a female captain. The other women cast members from other shows. Yeah, and then Andy Robinson, who was Garrick on Deep Space Nine, we interviewed him because he actually directed an episode of Voyager.
Okay.
Yeah, and Armin was in the pilot.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
So there are connections. They're not random.
Okay.
And Joe, just let me shout out. I mean, we had Chris Crosscove, who was the camera operator on 2 seasons of TNG, 5 of Voyager. Jonathan West, who was DP 2 of TNG, 5 of Deep Space Nine. I mean, and Karen Westerfield, was our makeup artist who did Armin Shimmerman as Quark. So we were very fortunate that all these people that worked on Star Trek are working on our documentaries.
Definitely. I mean, when we did What We Left Behind, we had Herman Zimmerman was our production designer or production consultant.
Amazing.
I think we have to, you know, so and our production designers for this were recommended by Star Trek alumni. And actually, since then, I believe that Kit actually worked on Picard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Season
Cool.
3, I believe Kit, and I'm not sure if Daniel did, but I'm pretty sure Kit worked on Picard.
All right,
So
so
this is in London.
So this is
London
London
folder.
Yeah, so we were able to get Kate Mulgrew. There's Alice Kriega, who played the Borg Queen.
Yeah.
So we were at the what's the convention center there? The Excel Center in London near the O2 Arena. And
Joe, is that you on stage there? That's you, isn't it?
that is. We were doing
All
a
right.
panel, a Voyager panel, telling people what we were doing. That was Lolita and Garrett with me. That was supposed to be a Voyager set. Okay, so there we are shooting some B-roll out near there. But yeah, we were filming for a couple of projects there. So we were filming for Voyager, but we were also filming for some stuff for the Nav Visitor project as well. And that's our production team. My wife was in the red there, was doing sound. Eric Stillwell worked on Voyager and a lot of Star Trek. Dave, there's Katie, who is one of our associate producers and has worked camera with us a lot. And Charlie and Tom were two of the guys that we hired in London. They live there, and they helped us immensely. They were our camera operators and DPs on that shoot, and those are the same Blackmagic cameras that we had.
Okay.
I brought those. We brought those in our little airport bags. We brought a lot of our gear. We rented the lighting there. But did we bring the? Maybe I think I got the tripods. No, those are my tripods. So yeah, I guess I brought my tripods and my cameras, and then I brought 2 of the 28 terabyte G-RAIDs that you so kindly sent us.
All right, let me get to that one then, and we can talk about media management. Yeah.
So I've mentioned this in past times we've done this. You know, especially when traveling, I always make 2 backups of everything. So those are the drives. I took those to London. These were actually in Burbank, but so everything gets transferred twice, not transferred to one drive and then copied to another in case something went wrong. So you have some redundancy and some safety. And
so hold on, go back there, because I want to make sure a lot of people out there hear that you take the original source file and you copy it to 2 or 3 hard drives directly, rather than copying it from one and then from that one to another. And just real quick hit on why that's important, because I think some people don't think about that. Because
something can get corrupted transferring. Maybe there's even if you have power conditioners and an APC backup, battery backups, something can happen and you can take a hit and lose data. So you copy it separately each time and you check it later. And if one file is damaged, hopefully the file on the other transfer is not. And so you have some safety. And because you don't want to lose that material. It's so hard to get the spontaneity of an interview. It's so hard to replicate that. Sometimes you can't get that person again. So you got to be really, you got to be as careful as possible. So what I would do is we would shoot on. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
We would shoot on set every day, and I was managing the cards. I was distributing the cards to the cameras, the camera operators. I was taking the cards. I was having my buddy Chris was backing them up, and then I would take. You see those two big XL shuttle drives there? Those were at my house, and I would take the smaller drives to the house, and I would back them up overnight. And I had a second set of two. So we had 4 28 terabyte shuttle drives that I would take 2 sets every day to the set and back the other stuff up overnight. And then I would just rotate. So I'd get one set would go to set, I'd take it home, another set would come the next day while it was still transferring. And then at the end of 2 weeks, I would go through and verify everything was there. We're a small operation, so I do a lot of this by myself. I just do it from my house. And when everything is all done, I have one set in my house, and I have one set outside of the house somewhere else for safety. So if there's a fire, only one set gets damaged, and I have a backup somewhere else.
That offsite backup is so critical. A lot of people just don't think about making sure that, you have the data somewhere else completely, because there are so many environmental factors that can come into play too.
Yep.
Pete, can I piggyback real quick on this topic?
Yeah.
I just want to know, with so many options now for recording externally straight from the camera, do you guys still record the old-fashioned way, just on a memory card, or do you guys record right to something external?
We record to a memory card. I have a ton of SSDs that we go to. A lot of the recorders, I think they usually sometimes they record MP4 or they record ProRes. I like to keep the 6K full information so that we can always go back to it. We're going to finish this film in 4K, and we will invariably punch into some of those interviews for some reason. So having that 6K Blackmagic raw native without any compression that we can adjust. That's Luke and I. We're post guys. That's our day job, and so we like that flexibility of having that.
How much terabytes of data collectively do you think you filmed for this Voyager documentary?
Probably about 120 to 140 terabytes.
Wow. And the final film will probably be how many how much of that is not used, so to speak, or whatnot?
A lot. A lot. Most of it.
Okay.
It's going to be. If you figure each interview is between an hour and 2.5 hours, and there's 2 or 3 cameras. I use those one terabyte SSDs, and so I get almost 3 hours on a card.
Okay.
So times 3. So each interview is about 2 to 3 terabytes.
I saw the SSD in this photo mix earlier. Where there it is.
Yeah.
So Joe, the editing that you do on these, what do you edit on? Do you edit on these external SSDs? Do you edit on the hard drives? Do you put it all on the computer and transfer things back and forth?
I make proxies of everything, and I have a drive with me that I have my in my bag, my shopping bag. I've got a project here with all my proxies, and I work off all those proxies. Those shuttle drives and a couple other of the 28 terabytes. Those are the backups. So right now I have 2 sets that comprise of 112 terabyte, those XL speed shuttles, and then a 28 terabyte G-RAID. And that's pretty much what everything is on right now. And I have 2 sets of those. And then I have proxy footage here where I'm working on a server here, as well as I have a shuttle drive. I have this G drive here, G RAID, and then somebody else. I have an assistant with a G RAID working at her home. I have Katie, who was in one of those pictures. She's doing some pre-builds for me right now.
And lastly, at least in terms of storage related questions that I have for you, what do you use to archive or catalog or keep track of this 150 terabytes of data that you have filmed, and how do you manage it all? Is there software you use, or what is your strategy?
No,
for managing it?
it's a basic strategy. At the end of the day, when this project is, I will probably knock on your drawer, Pete, and say, all right, now we're finishing the film, and I might need to get a couple more drives, RAIDs to put together the final film. I will, I do color, but I work with Luke and I work with another guy down a couple doors down from me, who is going to probably do the color on this project. So I will media manage, I'll break the film into reels, I'll media manage the reels, get it to him, he'll do his work, and he'll export out everything back to me, and I'll put everything back together and master the film out in 4K. A mix will happen at the same time that's going on. And then I will have those whatever those drives that I get, those will be the master for the finished film. And I will take screenshots of the directory structure and tape it to those drives so that I know what's on those drives. And I'll also save those logs, those screenshots, and have them up on Dropbox that I can always look at. Those Excel shuttles that have all the master media, those will get the same treatment, and so we'll always have access to those full interviews. But that's a different thing than what the final film will live on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what do you do for archiving all of this footage, especially the unused portions, and like, how do you keep the data, the integrity of the data long term? Because like, you don't always want to let a hard drive sit for too long inactive. Like, do you have 100 terabytes for What We Left Behind sitting somewhere in a closet, and you have all of that, the filmed footage?
I have some of it in my detached garage outside my house, and some of it's and the other sets are with Dave.
Okay.
So yeah, so he's got copies, I got copies.
Okay.
For the love of Spock.
You just buy extra, you just buy more storage, more hard drives, you put everything on it.
Every project gets its own drives.
Okay.
And then sorry, I was just getting a call. I had to message somebody back. Yeah, every project gets its own drives. I lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
But let me pose a quick question to you, Jill, because you've been working with Dave longer than I have. In the time that you've been with 450, how many drives do you think we have in our possession?
Well, we had at one point, right when the pandemic happened and everything locked down. Matter of fact, a week after we got back from Miami, Dave called me on a Thursday night. It was raining.
I was on, by the way, I was on the East Coast, and I got the call from Paramount. I think it was midnight my time, somewhere around there, right? It was late.
Yeah, it was. You called me at 9, so it was midnight, and we got the word that Paramount was shutting its doors. It would no longer be open to tenants or anybody. And we had some projects in play. We were remastering the William Shatner collection.
You got to set that. They gave us 3 hours notice. In other words,
3 hours notice.
California, we could not access the lot at all. That's how quick it was.
I have a Mini Cooper. I drove over to Paramount. Fortunately, I live like less than 3 miles away from there. I got on the lot. I drove over to our office, which is kind of a pain in the ass. You got to ask them to open a certain gate just to get onto that thing. And I had a little hand cart, and I loaded up, I think, about 36 drives. Some were big RAIDs, some were, G drives, not even G RAIDs, G drives going back to like 2009.
I meant to interrupt you before and say I loved that in the photos you sent me that they were all G-Tech branded products, because it just speaks to how long those drives last. And it's just something that for film and photography, just don't buy a cheap consumer level drive. It'll last you a year or two, but G-Tech, and now it's called SanDisk Professional. They'll all last you a decade or longer, and you can have those forever.
And they did, but I'll tell you what the pandemic allowed me to do is it allowed me to rectify a lot of things that were dangling that we've in our busy schedule had not been addressed. And so I had a lot of our footage was spread out for a bunch of projects over a bunch of drives, and they were smaller drives than we use now. And they were, 2 gigabyte, 4 gig, for 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte. Some of them were Firewire 400, Firewire 800, or with the USB 1, and I couldn't find some of my adapters, so I had to transfer through USB 1 to bigger drives. So I migrated everything from the older media to the newer ones. The drives are still working, but the connections and to get them to work with the newer software and the newer OSs and the newer computers was a little cumbersome. Matter of fact, when Pete, when you sent me the newer drives, I had to buy a new laptop to work with them. Really, I couldn't use my older laptop. I was like, oh shoot, we need a
Thunderbolt
new production.
3 or Thunderbolt 2 was on the options, right?
Yeah. I couldn't use the newer drives with the older laptop.
Okay.
So I had to, so that I had to factor that in, but it was good because I needed to stop working with something from 2013 and work with something from today to get the full benefits of what we can do today. So, but you get so busy and you're doing your thing. It's easy to, and there's always a deadline. It's easy not to take care of things. We are a small production still, there's maybe 5 other people in this team, and we all got other things going on, so it's a challenge, but we do what we can, and eventually it all works. We haven't, knock on wood, had any major things. Luke and I, we've had drives go down in raids and had to rebuild stuff, but it works.
Yep, good.
And we have and fortunately we do have that redundancy in place.
Yep. Do you ever migrate data from old hard drives? Do you ever say, hey, this drive is 10 years old, let's not trust it anymore? Or
well, that's what I did in 2020. I was like, I had all that stuff and I was at home and I had it all laid out in front of me, and I knew that I needed to get to a lot of it because we were remastering all the Shatner projects for the Captain's Collection that the Shout Factory put out, and so I needed to be able to access all that stuff in one place was ideal. So I repurposed redundant drives from that or extra drives that we had from what we left behind, and for the love of Spock, that I had already had everything backed up, and other drives freed up that I could use for the older projects. And that's what I did. And then I also have done that with my own personal projects going back 20 plus years as well.
All right.
But I have to think about getting some new RAIDs for my personal stuff because the drives that I have are older.
I'm not sure who you can talk to get some of those. Or where you can go. All right, so I have one sort of last point that I wanted to talk with you guys about before we then start going through some of the more photos you sent me, and you can give us some, behind the scenes of some of the shoots and whatnot. It has to do with, the distribution and the release of the final documentary. Like, can you talk a little bit about what, I know you said you're looking to try to release the film next year. In general, what do people who are looking to become a documentary filmmaker, what do they have to look to? What do they have to consider? What do they have to do if they want to get distribution, if they want to get their film on streaming platforms, things like that? Like, can you speak a little bit about how you sort of got started in that? I mean, obviously it's probably you have existing relationships that you've built from the other ones, but how did those get started?
Well, I gotta say that again, we have a leg up with that because we're dealing with Star Trek. And I got started in it with William Shatner. So it was a pretty easy, not easy, but certainly a good way in. I mean, you need a topic that will appeal to an audience. Obviously, you need to be focused on something, filming something that will have an appeal. And also you need, and this kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier with releases, you need to make sure that your film is cleared in all legal and copyright issues. Everything, you have releases for all of your interviews, you have insurance, E&O, errors and omissions. So that's really, I think, one thing documentary filmmakers don't really think about during the process, but you need to be constantly aware of that. You need to know if you're using movie or existing clips, will you clear them with the studio? Will you go fair use? And if you go fair use, then you need to have a legal opinion to support that. So that's my perspective, is as you're making the film, keep that ultimate clearance issue always top of mind.
There was a movie, a documentary made about the Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew was a legendary group of session musicians in the late 50s, 60s, and 70s that played on hundreds, if not thousands, of hits over the decades. You know, Frank Sinatra to the Beach Boys to the Mamas and Papas and whatever. I mean, they played on everything. And one of the son of Tommy Tedesco was one of those session musicians for the Wrecking Crew. Clint Campbell was one, Leon Russell, all these guys. He made this documentary about that, about the Wrecking Crew. And that film the film was done 10 years before the film came out, because he had to deal with all the music licensing issues and had to get, you know, people to help him in the music industry to, you know, they had to raise money or whatnot. And so it was a big challenge. So these are the everything that Dave talked about. It's not something to be taken lightly. If you want your film to get out, you have to take care of the legal aspects of that, and that costs money as well, and you have to budget that in.
And because the doctrine of fair use applies to video clips, but not to music. So music, either you clear it or you do not use it. That's it.
All right.
Or you make your own music.
Correct. Yeah, which we did with What We Left Behind. We went to Emmy-winning composer Dennis McCarthy, and who composed the original Deep Space Nine theme, and he and Kevin Kiner did our original score for the film. And we're hoping to work with Dennis and Kevin again on this film.
Very good.
That's awesome.
All right, I'm going to go through some of these photos, and if you guys want to just give us some behind the scenes and tell us a little bit about them and maybe what we can expect from, you know, if any of the footage is going to make it into the final cut, and, you know, any things that you remember from these various shoots that you had for this documentary. So this one, this first one says it is from the
this is from the Star Trek
2022.
Yeah.
Yes. So ECP, the promoter, they put together all that artwork. They make all this. They take a cruise ship, and they take off all they cover over all the branding of whatever the restaurants are and stuff, and they make everything Star Trek themed, and that's pretty cool. So there we are with Lolita, Katie, and Diane, and that's That's Max Grudenchik as not as Rom, and Chase Masterson as Lita together, and we got in on the photo op. That's Ryan and Kieran, who's part of our production team. That's us with Erin McDonald, who's the science advisor on all the new Star Trek, and her husband Aaron. And that's where we filmed some stuff for our Nana Visitor project in that thing. But we also had done some interviews in a similar lounge before. But yeah, that's yeah, that was me and Kieran reenacting the Wrath of Khan. I'm Spock, and he's James T. Kirk. The death scene. Yeah, I think we were in the port of the Grand Bahamas there.
All right, and then.
But yeah, those Star Trek cruises, we're on those ships for a week, and it's a lot. This was shot up in Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles, and that was the Okudas with Jonathan. That's that's Jonathan West, who's our DP consultant, and that's Mike Demerit, who was a second AD. I think he eventually became a first AD on Voyager. That's Bob Picardo, the holographic doctor, and that was where we filmed his interview.
So one thing I'll say, I did look through these photos before, and I basically saw interviews with pretty much every cast member. The only one I didn't see, and I'm curious if she's going to appear. Did you guys get to talk to Jennifer Leon, or is she going to be in there? Because I didn't see anything with her, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's not really able to sit for an interview. Okay. She is going to be in the film. We are relying on archival footage from things that were done by Paramount and CBS earlier. There is we definitely address her, and she does have a presence in the film. It would not be complete without her,
right?
In some form or other.
And this is my apartment.
Yeah. And that's Aaron J. Waukee that we were interviewing, who's one of the showrunners for Prodigy, Star Trek Prodigy, the animated show. John Delancey. Yep. He was. I
mean, I would assume he's gonna be in there. He was in several episodes of Voyager. He's gonna.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And Garrett Wang.
Yeah, that was Garrett. And that's Jonathan.
So is Lolita generally the interviewer for everybody? I mean, she's in all of the, okay. So she's sort of she's going to be leading the documentary for the most part.
Well, she's terrific, because I learned, I jumped from Shatner to Adam Nimoy, Ira Bear, and now Lolita. It's great to have an interviewer who actually worked with these people.
Right.
Yeah, not just an arm's length interview. She, experienced all this with them. So it's been very, very helpful.
Very good.
Yeah, I love the look of that John Delancey interview. That was some of the, I loved how that came out. Somebody asked us if we ever considered having an open store for those of us who want even more swag. Luke, do you want to share your opinion on that?
At some point that might happen. But as I kind of mentioned about the whole nature of crowdfunding in general, that catch-22 is that if we are just constantly operating a store and fulfilling a store, with way time that we should be spending on making the film. Right now we're going to focus on getting a great film created, and when we get closer towards the finishing of that, then we'll probably consider reopening some form of a store to continue the pre-sale of the film and any other merchandise that we might still have available.
And we will be in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Star Trek convention this summer. We will be selling some items there, going all the way back to the captains.
So this is on the cruise ship. This is the theater, the level, the quality of the theater that they have there. This is a Broadway quality theater. Mm-hmm. And that's where the panels are done and there's performances and stuff. That's Armin Shimmerman. He came by while we were interviewing Ethan Phillips, who played
That's Ethan in the front there too. Yeah.
Neelix.
yeah, that's Ethan in the
Joe, we're
front.
wearing the same shirt right now. Look at that.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm wearing
No, I mean
this
in
is
the
a-
you got
in the
two black
photo
locks.
here. you're
oh
wearing the
yes,
same
yes,
shirt.
yes. So yeah. Oh, we also have, we're using, Jonathan has two smaller Sony cameras, AX100s. They're not log or anything, but we have a couple of gimbals and we would run around the ship with those.
Okay.
And Katie was running around while we were filming with the Black Magics.
Okay.
And yeah, but yeah, that was one of the restaurants on the ship that they let us go into. It wasn't open for lunch. It was the day that we were in port, and that's when we've been trying to get to Ethan for 2.5 years. He had some personal issues that prevented him from filming, as well as he was tied to a show, and they wanted him isolated during
And
COVID.
Joe, let's
So
just
that was
let's just point out that, I mean, COVID in general, the shutdown really made getting everybody that much more difficult, which is why it took a lot longer than we thought.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it really impacted us.
So seeing this shot right here, you film some of the audience, I'm guessing. When you do stuff like this, do you have to get like waivers from everybody in the audience that you shot if you wanted to use them?
What they do, ECP, the company that runs this, and Creation and Destination Star Trek in England, all the companies we work with, they get a release. When you buy the ticket, you agree to be filmed.
Okay.
So as long as we are working in conjunction with the promoter, we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would be, you got to be very careful who you film.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see what the next
Jonathan
one
and
is.
myself.
You've got a whole bunch with Jerry Taylor.
Yeah, Jerry Taylor.
For
was
that,
one of
we
the
went up to
co-creators
Northern California to shoot her. It was a beautiful
at
beautiful
her
shot.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I say there's this nice one with you guys all with her.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
Kevin Lane, who's one of our producers as well. Yeah, Kevin, Lolita, and I drove up to see Jerry, and
Was it, Joe,
Lolita
7
and
hour
Jerry are
drive
very
at
close.
least? 7 hours, right, Joe? At least.
Yeah. Well,
Even more.
from San Jose,
Right.
which is where Lolita lives, it took us 5 hours to get there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's more like 9 hours. That's my wife,
Peck.
Allie, with Ethan Peck.
So this says,
this-
is he going to appear in the document? Is he going to be in the Voyager documentary?
We did interview
Or is he
him.
just on the cruise
we-
and you got a photo with him?
No, we interviewed him.
Okay.
We did interview him. We had a technical difficulty with some of that interview, actually. But
Joe, we also have him in the excursion, remember, with
oh, that's
Picardo.
right. He did an excursion with Bob Picardo when we were in Puerto Rico and San Juan.
Yeah,
So,
he was terrific, very supportive. Very
I guess,
supportive.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was in 2020. I'm drawing a blank as to, I'm assuming that, Strange New Worlds, he had been cast already and this had been a known thing. I don't think the season had come out yet, but they had probably filmed it or something.
they had,
Didn't he start on Discovery, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He was on Discovery for their second
Yeah.
season. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've made it through all of the photos you sent me. And you know what? So if there's any other things you guys want to say or any other little nuggets you want to share.
Somebody asked, is there any possibility of us releasing a special extended version for streaming or DVD? We will definitely have things that didn't make it into the film that we will include in the Blu-ray DVD release. I don't know how much of that there will be, but we did quite a lot for what we left behind. So we'll see. We have a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, 150 terabytes of extra information.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right.
Somebody asked about LTO archiving. Maybe it's just we don't really have a a clean room or an infrastructure. I'm at a facility, but it's not my facility. And so
Yeah.
for us, we're a little hybrid. We have high production values, but we have guerrilla filmmaking resources.
Yeah.
And so perhaps, but
I mean, have you seen anybody do tape archiving in the last decade or two? I mean, I can't imagine there's much equipment that can do it anymore.
Yeah. What, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, the company that myself and Joe work for when we're not making documentary films do still back up on LTO tape.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's a much larger facility than everyday documentary filmmakers are going to have access to.
Yeah, I mean, that's, whenever we get asked the question of what's the most reliable archival storage, I always have to say it's tape, but good luck finding anybody that really can do it. Otherwise, SSDs and hard drives, they still have a limited shelf life, regardless of how well you treat them. So tape is really the main thing. Or I tell people, subscribe to an online cloud backup service, because they're always changing out their drives. Those drives are always rated in some way, so that's really the only other sort of long-term solution where you don't have to worry about the integrity of a drive, so to speak.
How much do you think it costs to back up 150 terabytes?
I can't even imagine how much that would be, or how much time it would take to transmit 150 terabytes of data.
Yeah.
Gonna do a separate crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, right, exactly. Hey, let us back it up. Can you want to fund that? So yeah, you realize, like, when we did What We Left Behind, all the clips that we used, we went back to the film scans. They scanned 400 reels for us. They didn't find the shot. They figured out what day it would have been, and they just scanned all the footage from that day. And then they found the shot for us, but they handed us to us. But Paramount CBS has Iron Mountain somewhere where they have everything stored in salt mines. Yeah. Fortunately, we don't have those resources or those problems. But so we'll have to just keep buying new drives every few years and
going to B&H
them up that
and
way.
Buying more drives. Buying more SanDisk professional drives at B&H.
Keep B&H and SanDisk in business. What do you guys? I want to sneak one last question in. Just a ballpark of the percentage of footage that gets used versus what gets left.
Oh, 10 to 1.
Yeah, I think around 10 to 1% is a good number.
Yeah.
Wow.
But look at What We Left Behind. We were able to. What were the special features? 2 hours on that?
We had another feature in the special features.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
See how it goes here.
Also to mention too, because for people thinking that there's really great nugget of information that we've secretly held on to and not released. When you interview someone for 2 hours, there's a lot of minute conversations about, what did you have for lunch yesterday? There's a lot of stuff that's maybe not that interesting to see, or maybe it is interesting depending on who you are. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Ira goes and watches. He'll buy old movies and find interviews where they'll put the whole interview on he'll watch hours of interviews. I mean, that's what he does. I do it to tell a story, but I don't need to go back and watch a Jean-Luc, a Godard film and watch an interview in French with subtitles that the director did for 2 hours in 1970, looking back at it. But some people like that.
Yep.
It's given me anxiety thinking about watching all that footage and just,
having to remember it all and then be like, hey, I just watched all this. What can I make into a story on it?
A key part of this that we didn't mention exactly is transcripts. Transcripts save your life.
Okay.
And nowadays, actually for this film, I sent everything out for transcripts, but now it's finally gotten pretty good. It's still not perfect, but Premiere and Resolve, they can auto-generate.
I was just going to say, what do you use for transcripts, or how do you do that? So it's,
Well, I was using rev.com for the last 4 years.
Okay.
But lately I've been doing it out of Premiere. And another project that we're working on with Jonathan West, he prefers working in Resolve for editorial, and he's doing that through Resolve transcript, auto transcription. So it's getting easier to do all these things and less
Transcription
expensive.
companies around the world are shedding tears right now just listening to that.
right.
As will we
I
when we
know.
find out that it's going to be able to edit a film for us too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Interesting.
You know,
All
AI.
right.
Hey,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was
What's
gonna say,
AI? What's
leave it at
AI
that.
going to
sounds like
be in a few more
we're
years?
diving into another 2-hour conversation about it here.
Yeah. Well,
We'll have
thank
to have
you
you guys back
guys.
just for a separate conversation on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been using it not to generate new things, but there's video upscaling and image upscaling and audio separation, removing music from archival footage, that things that we would normally not be able to get the splits for. We can now actually make the splits and actually be able to use it. So but there's also going to be Terminator AI robots running around soon too. So I don't know. Yin and
Documentaries will
yang,
be
yin and
easier,
yang.
but they might take out the human race. There we go.
Exactly.
Wow, this was awesome, Pete. I
Yeah.
gotta thank you before you close out here, because this was awesome. I mean, I want to thank you guys for your time and your expertise and your willingness to pull back the curtain.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those topics where a lot of people don't know. They don't know what they don't know, so they don't know
Right.
what to ask.
And Derek, this is why I scheduled this for 2 hours, because there's so much here. These guys are so good and they know they're so experienced and they have so much to say that this just, we probably could keep going for another hour and, still not really have any sort of lull. So
Oh yeah, no, this
I
was
love
great.
working with these guys.
I'm going to throw one thing out. Somebody asked any tips on getting good interviews. That's a whole other one of these conversations.
Yeah.
There's what does
Well, I
that
think
mean?
we
There's a
touched
bunch
on
of
that,
facets to
Joe.
that.
I think we touched on it with the interviewer having a connection with the interviewee. Certainly,
Yeah.
has helped. Yeah.
Maybe that's
Yeah,
the
but
next topic that we get into.
But there's lighting, there's the atmosphere of the whole thing. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
I
A lot
know.
We
of
could have
alcohol.
talked about Vassar for
it's true. You and I probably could have.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have heard your experiences, because I think it sounds like you were there. We did not overlap by any years, so it sounds like I would love to hear, especially like, what is the computer infrastructure like during then? Because I started right.
Zero.
There
There were no.
so.
I think we had a Tandy Radio Shack.
I thought it was an abacus, Dave.
What?
So-
Oh, come on, Joe.
So Dave, my mom also went to Vassar and she graduated in 71. And she
Oh,
said
I'm like right in the middle of you guys.
the computer lab was one giant mainframe computer that you scheduled time for, and you got 1 hour, and basically it printed out, you could program like 2 different designs and would print out on those giant green and white striped sheets,
Yeah.
X's in the shape of a Mickey Mouse head. And then
You know,
everybody
my,
put them up in their dorm room. That was what computers could do in 1971 at Vassar.
Well, in the 80s, my girlfriend at the time, Goldie, had a Tandy Radio Shack computer with a dot matrix printer, and we were the only people that had a computer. And all of everybody else was still on typewriters.
Yeah. Oh,
There was
wow.
no fax, there was no voicemail, there was no internet, nothing.
Yep.
Wow.
And
Did you have a
we
pager?
and in the film class, we were working on Bolex 16 millimeter. Vassar hadn't even graduated to video.
Okay.
Yeah. So long time ago.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all. Thanks to B&H for hosting us and allowing us to come talk to your customer base. We love being here. We love, getting these opportunities. So thank you, Derek. Thank you, B&H. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dave. I'm so glad you could be here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
It's
All right.
always a
Until next
pleasure.
time, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.